Well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jane, and today I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about how I have been attempting to heal an Achilles tendon injury. Now, this channel tends to be about creativity and wellness, and doing things in your own way. And underneath all of that, there is the acknowledgement of living life with a chronic illness, make things a little bit different. But I very, very rarely talk about actual health issues. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. And the first one is, giving advice to people about their health is really intrusive. Everybody's health is very different. People have different challenges, different life circumstances, different relationships with their body. So I don't want to be doing that. And secondly, I've noticed that where health is discussed on the internet, it's very easy for people watching to get upset in whatever form that takes, and for the comments to just become quite difficult and full of emotion. So to address these two things, what I'm going to talk about today is very much my own experience of what happens. It's a story, right? It's a story about what happened to me and kind of like inside my mind and so on, while I have been living with an Achilles tendon injury. So what I would say is, if you feel annoyed watching it in any way, maybe the health things don't fit with what you have experienced, and that's fine. I don't expect them to. Please either just decide that it's not for you, or watch the whole thing before you leave a comment. Okay, because it is very much my story of what happened. So let's begin. 2 years ago, Easter weekend, I went for a walk. I was trying to get, some fitness up. It's spring, that's the time that you get out more, you can try and start walking. And if I'm honest, I knew that as I kind of hit the mile point in the walk, that there was something wrong with my foot. And instead of being sensible and phoning somebody to come pick me up, I continued with the whole loop. And by the time I got home, I was in a great deal of pain and I was limping. What had happened was I had damaged my Achilles tendon, which is something that people who take steroids for long periods of time, which I do, is one of the risks. What happened then is something that is very, very typical of me. I suspect that it might be typical of a lot of people who live with chronic illness. I have a tendency, when something goes wrong with me, just to kind of add it to the pile. So I didn't treat the Achilles tendon injury properly. I might have stuck some frozen peas on it, might have kept it up for an hour, but really I didn't do much. And for the next 6 months, I oscillated between trying to rest it and trying to walk through the pain. Eventually, when this had been going on for 6 months, people around me started to say, look, just go and see about that foot, because it's really affecting everybody. I'd been on holiday and I'd not been able to walk very far without a lot of pain. I was taking anti-inflammatories and painkillers all the time, holiday. It was quite ridiculous. So I went to a podiatrist and I got a scan, and there, yes, you could see the Achilles tendon. You could see exactly where it had got its damage, right at the heel. And in fact, you could see that just with the naked eye. One of my heels is a completely different shape from the other. And you could also see lots of inflammation in there, lots of bursitis. So the podiatrist suggested that we try insoles to sort of like just make me walk in a slightly different way and see how we got on. So, got all of the 3D printing done for the insoles, and off I went. And what he said was, do not walk through the pain. If the pain gets more than a 4 on your 1 to 10, just don't walk, because you're just making it worse. So I tried to take that advice, but it didn't get better. It didn't get better, and it didn't get better. And then suddenly it started getting worse. And this was last summer. And my dad was ill. I was doing a lot of driving. It was a manual car. The traffic through to Edinburgh is appalling. So you're like an hour in a traffic jam going around Edinburgh with the clutch. And I thought, well, this is what is causing all of the problems with my foot. But by the time we got to, the end of July, beginning of August, I was really struggling to walk very far at all. Walking from the car park to the hospital was really just very, very bad pain. That kind of, you put your foot down, it's like you've been burnt kind of pain. And I was getting very anxious about it because walking is at the center of my life. I do my thinking when I'm walking. So not being able to walk was a real mess. So my dad died at the end of August, and sort of like end of September, I got another appointment back with the podiatrist. Had another scan, no changes, still a damaged Achilles, still lots and lots of bursitis there. And the podiatrist was kind of, we've done what we can here, and maybe you should be thinking about an operation. And I was thinking, that doesn't sound good. Having a foot operation. That sounded very painful, and I take ages to recover from everything. So I said, oh, well, I would go away and I would think about it and things, and I would do all of the exercises even more and all of this kind of promises. And then just as he was like walking me to the door, he said, another thing that you could try, because it's worked for some people, but we don't offer it, is acupuncture. And I thought, well, acupuncture, operation, that sounds like a good idea. So I went home and I sort of researched all of the acupuncturists that would do that kind of work. And I found that they all had a waiting list. So it was going to be sort of February this year, actually beginning of February this year, that I could get an appointment. So I thought, well, that's fine, I'll just wait on that. And in the meantime, I'll just take painkillers, take anti-inflammatories, try and do what I can. But then there was something clicked in my brain. Next day, I had an appointment booked to have Reiki with Carrie, who is my Reiki nephew. Reiki is something that I am actually really pragmatic, touch it, feel it, believe it kind of person. And Reiki, which I've been getting for a few years, has very much challenged that view of me. And I have got a whole video about Reiki and how it kind of came from the side to become a really important part of my life. So, well, what I'll do is I'll just speak to Carrie about this. And at the same time, I was coming up with ideas for what this year's theme was going to be. I was looking at the bits of my life that I felt could do with some improvement maybe. And I had looked at this idea of my becoming just too much of a hermit, believing too much in the introvert kind of label, to the point that I was becoming afraid to go out, to the point that it was curtailing my life. And I thought, I wonder whether that has something to do with my foot injury. So I went to see Carrie for Reiki the next day, and beginning of the session, I talked to her about this. I said, you know, I've got this sore foot, had it for 2 years. It's, you know, the damage is very visible. You can see it, like physically on my foot. You can definitely see it on scans. But actually, I think that it might all be connected to my fear of going out. So Carrie obviously did not laugh at that. She said, could well be. I said, what I'll do is I'll do some Reiki healing on your foot, and then I've got some kind of links to things that might help you. So she did the Reiki healing, that's fine. Next day, for the first time in 2 years, now I kid you not, I mean, I know this sounds like a ridiculous story. For the first time in 2 years, I was able to get out of bed and walk to the bathroom without any pain. Well, maybe that's not true. Yes, without any pain, there was still discomfort there, right? So I could feel that, you know, my foot wasn't mended. It wasn't like it had disappeared, but there was not that burning kind of pain. And over the next couple of months, you know, I have Reiki 1 or 2 times a month. The pain gradually went. So it went from me being able to just, you know, like do that walking to the bathroom first thing in the morning to me being able to walk a couple of miles with just minor discomfort, this kind of thing. So I thought, well, it's brilliant. Obviously it's brilliant, but also it's a bit weird. You know, I grew up with needing answers, and of course I do a lot of things now where I don't have answers, but still I thought this is worth exploring. So I looked through the links that Carrie had sent me, which were not at all spiritual links. They were links about the connection between brain and pain. And this possibility that when you have something that is chronic, like my foot was chronic, there was a definite incident, there was definite damage, you can see that, it's not a pretend thing, but that then the brain, if you're anxious or overwhelmed, or if there's anything that you can tell a story about, your brain can take over that pain response. And seemingly, if you do brain scans, you can see how the pain moves from being in the bit of the brain that would connect to the foot to the bit of the brain that tells stories. Now, this seems amazing to me. But there is a whole now protocol about this, and I will put it underneath here because, again, I'm not an expert in this, but there are really good links. If this kind of, I would say if you have a pain that either sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, or it started off as pain and it's got worse, which is what happened to me, I would just, you know, have a read, see whether they click anything for you. So what I think had happened to me is, yes, I had this Achilles tendon injury. I did not treat it brilliantly. So by the time I went to the podiatrist, it was probably more entrenched than it needed to be. I also have, if you've got an autoimmune disease and take steroids, it can slow down the recovery of things like tendons anyway. So I had that going along, and then I started to get anxious. I have this low-level anxiety about going out, but certainly when my dad was very ill, that really ramped up. It seemed to be that the only thing that I could control in life was being indoors. So I spent, 3 or 4 months really not going out very much, except to the hospital. And I think somehow that all got confused in my brain so that a storytelling element came into the pain, and it ramped up the pain to the point that I really couldn't go out, you know. Walking 50 yards would be really difficult for me. So there I am. Definitely not in need of an operation now. Cancelled the acupuncture because there's not enough pain to justify that. And instead, what I'm doing is following this protocol for people that this happens. It's sort of like a neuroplasticity thing. And the things that matter are assuring yourself that you are safe. And that's what I think Reiki does for me. It really, I find it very calming. I find it gives me this feeling that I am in the right place, that I am almost being guided through life is the only way that I could explain it. So I think that the Reiki really gives me that safety. But also now, if I'm going out into crowds or to meet new people or in kind of any kind of, you know, difficult circumstance for a hermit, I actually physically tell myself that I am safe. And I will do a visualization to say, I am safe. This is a thing. And I know that that sounds just bizarre, but for me, that has worked. Second part of the protocol is really to kind of immerse yourself in doing the scary thing. So going to concerts or on trains or busy shopping streets, all of that kind of thing, and showing your body that you are actually safe. Going for a walk and not worrying that I'm not going to be able to get back. Building all of that up. So now here I am in Naples, and I'm really in I'm seeing the stuff that I'm doing here as rehabilitation now of my fitness. Because obviously, if you can't walk, fitness kind of goes down. And also, I live in a bungalow, so I don't need to do stairs in my daily life. I don't have the opportunity of doing stairs in my daily life. And I had found that I was completely de-skilled from stairs. I couldn't go up, I couldn't go down without hanging on to something and taking it like one step hops, one step hop, one step hop, or down the way. Quite ridiculous. So Naples, if you've seen any pictures of Naples, you know, you've got that beauty from the sea, which is where I'm kind of like, I'm at sea level. And then you've got this rising of houses. That's why it's such a beautiful city to look at. And obviously, there are lots and lots of hills, but most of them are done with these stairs. So I went for lunch, somewhere that I thought was quite close to my flat, actually. It turned out to have 32 flights of stairs between me and my lunch. And that is rehabilitating my fitness. And because I no longer have what I would term pain, but I just have discomfort in that foot, I'm never hitting the podiatrist's 4 out of 10 to stop the activity. So I'm making this video because if there's a chance that there is somebody else out there with, you know, the same kind of injury that I had or something else, I don't know how many things this would affect. I so wish that I had realised that 18 months ago, before I felt that the world was closing in because I couldn't walk without extreme pain. And it's really all been sorted out in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And now I just need to get my fitness back until I can zoom up those stairs. So we are. I'd love to have comments. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm just explaining what happened to me straightforwardly as I can. And I will put, I've written a blog and I've put all of the sources are actually on the blog so that I can update it nice and easily if I need to. So anyway, I'm now off to run up some stairs, well, walk quite slowly up some stairs, and I shall see you next Friday. Bye bye.